Good afternoon, Husky Pups. Today, I'm going to read chapters 15 and 16. So first, I'm going to go over chapter 15's questions. Why is Sophie so upset at the beginning of this chapter? And Mrs. Faulkner read that to you yesterday. How can the BFG make the Queen's dream? What did Sophie want in the dream? What does the flesh lump eater long to gobble? What do you think will happen when Sophie and the BFG arrive in London? So listen carefully as I do chapter 15. We've got to absolutely stop them, Sophie said. Put me back in your pocket quick. We'll chase after them and warn everyone in England they're coming. Because remember, the giants are going to England to eat all the boys and girls in the orphanage. It's impossible, the BFG said. This is going 2 times as fast as me, and they is finishing their guzzle before we are halfway there. We can't just sit here and do nothing. How many girls and boys are going to get eat up tonight? Many, the BFG said. The flesh-lumping giant alone has an enormous appetite. Will he snatch them out of their beds while they're sleeping? Yes, he will, the BFG said. I can't bear to think of this, Sophie said. Then don't. For years and years, I is sitting here on this very rocky night after night, when they is galloping away, and I feel so sad for all of the human beings that is going to get gobbled up. But I has had to get used to it. There's nothing I can do. If I wasn't a little runty giant, only 24 feet high, then I would be stopping them. But they're all bigger than me, and I'm just a little one. Do you always know where they're going? Sophie asked. Always, the BFG said. Every night, they is yelling and telling me. The other day, they were going to Mississippi and then to Missouri to guzzle human beings up. That's disgusting. I just hate them, Sophie said. She and the BFG sat quietly side by side on the blue rock in the gathering dusk. Sophie had never felt so hopeless in her life. After a while, she stood up and said, I just can't stand it. I just can't think of these poor girls and boys who are going to be eaten alive in a few hours. We can't just sit here. We've got to do something. We can't, the BFG said. We must. Why won't you go? The BFG sighed. I have told you this. I is never showing myself to human beings. But why ever not? If I do, they will put me in a zoo. Oh, nonsense, Sophie said. And they will be sending you right back to that terrible orphanage. Grown-up human beings is not famous for their kindness. That isn't true, Sophie said. Some of them are very kind. Who? The BFG said. Name one. Well, Sophie says, the Queen of England. Here's the question. The flesh lump eater is longing dearly to guzzle up the Queen of England. The Queen? Why? Yes. Flesh lump eater says he is never eating a queen, and he thinks perhaps he has an especially hunger for her. How dare he? Sophie asked. But flesh lump eater says there's too many soldiers around her palace, so he doesn't. Well, he better not. I hope he chokes, Sophie says. Flesh lump eater is a careful giant, he said. Sophie was silent for a minute, and then she's like, I've got it. I've got an idea. What? Said the BFG. The answer. We'll go to the Queen. It's a terrific idea. If I went and told the Queen about these giants, I'm sure she'd do something about it. The BFG looked down at her sadly. She would never believe you. But I think she would. Never, said the BFG. Tell the Queen about giants? It's rubbish. She never would. Of course she would, the BFG. I have told you before that human beings do not believe in giants. Then it is up to us to make her believe. And how are we going to do that? The BFG says. Now hold on. That just gives me another idea. You say that if we tell the Queen, she would never believe us. I am certain she wouldn't, said the BFG. But we aren't going to tell her. We don't have to tell her. We'll make her dream it. That is even more preposterous. Dreams is lots of fun, but nobody's believing in dreams. You was only believing in a dream while you actually dreaming it. But as soon as you wake up, you say, oh, thank goodness, it was only a dream. Don't you worry about that part. I can fix that, Sophie says. I can, I swear, but first of all, let me ask you this very important question. Can you make a person dream absolutely anything in the world? Anything you like, the BFG says proudly. If I said I wanted to dream that I was flying in a bathtub with silver wings, could you make me dream it? I could, the BFG says, but how? You obviously don't have that exact dream in your collection. I don't, the BFG says. I can mix the dreams. How would you do that? It's like mixing a cake, said the BFG. You're going to put the right amounts of all the different ingredients in it, just like you do a cake, and then you mix it up. I have so many dillions of dreams on my shelves, right or left, right? I see what you mean, Sophie said, like mixing them up like a cake. But I didn't know you could mix one dream with another. Dreams like being mixed, the BFG answered. They get very lonesome by themselves in these glassy bottles. Right. Now, do you have any dreams about the Queen of England? Lots of them. About giants? Well, of course, the BFG said. And about giants eating people? Swiggles of them, the BFG. And little girls like me? Of course, all kinds of bottles of dreams of little girls. And you could mix them all up just as I want you to? Sophie asked, getting more and more excited. Of course, the BFG said. But how is this helping us? I think he was barking up the wrong dog. Now hold on. Listen carefully. I want you to mix a dream, which you will blow into the Queen of England's bedroom while she's asleep. And this is how it will go. Now hang on a minute, said the BFG. How is this possibly going to get me near enough the Queen of England to blow a dream in her? You was talking silliness. I'll tell you that later. For the moment, please listen carefully. Here's the dream I want you to mix. I want the Queen to dream that 9 disgusting giants, each one 50 feet tall, are galloping to England in the night. She must dream their names as well. Flesh lump eater, man hugger, bone cruncher, child chewer, meat dripper, gizzard gulper, maid masher, blood bottler, and the butcher boy. Let her dream all those names, and let her dream that they are creeping into England, into the witching hour, and snatching little girls and little boys from their beds. Let her dream that they will be reaching into their bedroom windows and pulling the little boys and girls out. Do they eat them on the spot, or do they carry them away? They is usually popping them straight into their mouths like popcorn. Put that into the dream, Sophie said, and then the dream must be that their tummies are full, and then they go galloping back to giant country where no one can find them. Is that all? The BFG said. Oh, certainly not. You must then explain to the Queen in her dream that there is a BFG, a big friendly giant, who can tell her where all these beasts are living so that she can send her soldiers and her armies to capture them once and for all. And now let her dream one last and very important thing, that there's a little girl called Sophie sitting on her windowsill who can tell her where the BFG is hiding. Where is he hiding? Well, we'll come to that later. So the Queen dreams her dream, right? Right, the BFG says. Then she wakes up. The first thing she thinks is, oh, what a horrible dream. I'm so glad it was only a dream. And then she looks up from her pillow, and what does she see? What does she see, the BFG said. She sees a little girl named Sophie sitting on her windowsill. How is you going to be sitting on her windowsill? You are going to put me there, Sophie said. And that's the lovely part. If someone dreams that there's a little girl on her windowsill, and then she wakes up and the little girl is actually really sitting there, then they were going to believe their dreams can come true. I see where you're going with this, the BFG says. If the Queen is knowing that part of her dream is true, then perhaps she's believing the rest of it as true as well. That's about it. But I shall have to convince her of that myself. You said you was wanting the dream to say there's a big friendly giant who is going to talk to the Queen. Absolutely, you must. You are the only one that can tell her how to find the other giants. Are you going to help me find the palace where the Queen lives? The BFG asked. I has not dared to go sneaking around London. I'll show you the way, Sophie said. But I'm frightened of London, the BFG says. Don't be. And you is absolutely sure the Queen will not put me in a zoo? Of course you won't, Sophie said. You'll be a hero, and you'll never have to eat snozcumbers again. Sophie saw the BFG's eyes widen. You mean it? I won't have to eat those snozcumbers again? Not unless you didn't want to. Humans don't grow them. That did it. The BFG got to his feet. When is you wanting me to mix this special dream? Now, Sophie said at once. When is we going to see the Queen? Tonight, as soon as you've mixed the dream. Tonight? If we can't save tonight's children, we can anyway save tomorrow's. What is more is I'm getting famished. I haven't had a thing in 24 hours. And we better get cracking, the BFG said. Sophie kissed him on the tip of the thumb. I knew you'd do it. Come on, let's hurry. And that is chapter 15. So make sure you go and you answer all of these questions in a complete sentence and then post a picture. We are moving on to chapter 16, mixing the dream. So if you need to pause the video first, go ahead. The questions for chapter 16 to look for are: explain how the BFG mixes the dreams. Why did the BFG say, keep watching, Sophie? Describe what happens when the BFG started to mix the dream. How come the BFG told Sophie to stop talking? Let's see how we mix dreams. It was dark now. The night had already begun. The BFG was sitting with Sophie. He placed her on the table. Stay here, please, and no chittering. I needn't listen only to silence when I am mixing up such a complicated dream. He hurried away. He got out an enormous empty jar. He clutched it to his chest and hurried towards the shelves where thousands and thousands of dreams were. Dreams about giants. He's looking through them. Giants guzzling human beings. Oh, here's one. Oh, here's another. He grabbed the jars and unscrewed the tops. He tipped the dreams into the enormous jar he was clutching. And as each one went in, Sophie caught a glimpse of the blob from one jar into the other. The BFG hurried towards another shelf. Now, I is wanting all kinds of dreams about girls and boys and orphanages. And dreams about me, about the BFG. Come on, hurry up, let's get with it. Now, where in the wonky world is I keeping those? And so he went on, and in about half an hour, the BFG had found all the jars that he had wanted, and he tipped a little bit of them into the really big, enormous one. Inside the big jar, Sophie could clearly see about 50 of these oval sea green jelly shapes, all pulsing gently in and out, some lying on top of the others, but each one is quite separate, individual little dream. Now we're mixing them, the BFG announced. He went to his cupboard. Just remember, when he decided to make this dream, it was like making a cake. He gets out gigantic egg beaters, okay, and he's just mixing it up. So it's like they're mixing a cake, but it's actually a dream. He says, look, I'm mixing it very fast. The flashes of green and blue exploded inside the jars. The dreams were being whisked into a sea green froth. After about a minute, the BFG stopped. The whole bottle was now full to the brim with large bubbles. They were almost exactly like the bubbles we ourselves blow from soapy water, except they were more beautiful colors. Keep watching, the BFG said. That's a question, Husky Pups. Quite slowly, the topmost bubble rose up through the neck of the jar and floated away. A second one followed, then a third, then a fourth. Soon the cave was filled with hundreds of beautifully covered bubbles. And I think Mrs. Faulkner had a bubble machine for you. All drifting gently through the air, it was truly a wonderful sight as Sophie watched them. They all started floating towards the cave. They're going out, Sophie whispered. Of course, but where to? They're tiny little dream bits. They're going back into the dream country. Do not try to understand them. Look in the big bottle that we were creating. Now you will see the dream that you are wanting for the Queen. Sophie turned and looked at that big, enormous jar. On the bottom of it, something was thrashing around wildly. Because remember, the nightmares, they thrash around and they move. Good heavens, is that it? That's it, the BFG said. But it's horrible. It's trying to get out. Well, that's because it's a troggle-humper. It's a nightmare. Oh, but I don't want to give the Queen a nightmare. If she is dreaming about giants guzzling up little boys and girls, then you're expecting it to be a nightmare. Oh, no, Sophie cried. Oh, yes, the BFG says. A dream where you are seeing little children being eaten is probably the most frightsome, troggle-humping dream you can get. Sophie stared down at the fearful nightmare dream that was thrashing away in the huge glass jar. It was much larger than the others. It was about the size and shape of a turkey's egg. It was jellyish. It had tangles of bright scarlet deep inside. There was something terrible about the way it was thrashing around. When I is blowing this dream into the queen's bedroom, she will be dreaming every single little thing you is asking me to make her dream. About me sitting on the windowsill? Yes, that part. And about the BFG? Yep, I is putting a little bit of there in there about me. Oh, that's it. I think it's ready. Is you ready to leave? The BFG asked. I'm ready, Sophie cried. Her heart was beginning to thump at the thought of what they were going to do. It really was wild and a crazy thing. The BFG was putting on his great black coat. Slowly, he swiveled his huge right ear until it was like a great shell facing the heavens. He asked if Sophie wanted to come up onto his ear, because Sophie did not want to be near that nightmare jar at all. He lifted Sophie up and placed her there. The ear itself was about the size of a large tea tray, was full of the same channels and crinkets as a human ear. It was extremely comfortable. I hope I don't fall down your ear hole, Sophie said. Be very careful that you do not, the BFG said. You would be giving me an earache. The nice thing about being there was that she could whisper directly. I'll try to. Are you ready? Ah! Yelled the BFG. Don't do that. So Sophie's sitting on his ear, but remember, he has such great hearing that her talking seems super loud to him. I didn't do anything, Sophie said. You was talking too loud. You was forgetting that I hearing every little tiny things 50 times louder than usual. And there you are shouting away inside my ear. Oh gosh, Sophie said, I'm sorry, I forgot that. Your voice is like thunder. I'm so sorry, Sophie whispered. Is this better? No, cried the BFG. It sounds as though you was shooting off a rocket. Then how can I talk to you, Sophie said. Don't, cried the BFG. Please don't. Each word is like you dropping buzz bombs in my ear hole. Sophie tried speaking right under her breath. Is this better? She spoke so softly she couldn't hear. That's better, the BFG said. Now I is hearing you very nicely. What is it that you try saying just to me just now? I is saying we are ready. We are off, cried the BFG, heading for the cave entrance. We are off to meet the queen. Outside the cave, he rolled the large round stone back into place and set off at a tremendous gallop. So now you can go through and answer the 4 questions on chapter 16. Always remember to use complete sentences, lots of good details from the text. And then tomorrow, we are going to go back and do something fun with our dream jar for Fun Friday. See you tomorrow.